Hey guys, Greg and Stacy here from Kzoo Keto. And we're bringing you Macadamia Nut Bread Take 2. Take 2! And that's not a joke about the fact that we've been already trying to record this a few times. But that's why Stacy's snickered. But anyway, so I made a video on this, was it 9 months ago-ish?
Yeah, maybe February-ish.
Yeah, February. So fairly quick right after we started keto, because if you guys are like us, one of the things that you're gonna miss a lot is bread, sandwiches, that kind of stuff. Yep. So we happened to watch
the
Magic Pill, and they talked about that. So I scoured the internet, found the best recipe, made some changes, and then started making this. And Stacy fell in love with it. And then
I took over.
And then she took over. We sold this at our farmers market when we were doing it locally. We have friends who we have friends who ask us to make this for them. They pay us for it.
Yeah.
Now, this isn't cheap bread, guys. It's mostly made with nuts. So if you've got a nut allergy, this is not the recipe for bread for you. If you don't, though, this is amazing. Mm-hmm. We use it for sandwiches. We use it for French toast. We use it for regular toast. Stacy's made grilled cheeses with it. Mm-hmm.
And they're really good, in my opinion. Greg's not a huge fan of it.
It's very rich, so it's very dense bread.
It is.
I love a good sandwich. They're small loaves. I mean, they're not huge, right? So
yeah, they don't bake up real big, but they're very dense, which makes them filling.
Yes, very filling. Like literally one sandwich with some good quality lunch meat, perfect for lunch. Yeah, and that's what Stacy pretty much. Yeah, and some cheese too.
Maybe some Alternative Sweets barbecue sauce.
Right.
But we do get about 20 slices per loaf.
Right. So these slices are fairly thin. We throw them in a toaster oven. Works out great.
And they come out to 1.6 net carbs per slice.
So you're talking about 3.2 carbs per sandwich.
And if you compare that to the Sola bread that a lot of people have been buying, the Sola bread is actually 3 net carbs per slice. Yeah. And it's not that much bigger than this, honestly.
We love it. We eat it literally all the time. And Stacy taking over, she's made some enhancements on it, and then she'll be walking you through how to make this. Biggest components I think you need to find, though, is getting the nuts and the almond butter. Those are sometimes challenging to find in quantities that are affordable. Yep. Costco seems to be the best place. But anyway, we could talk about this all day. Let's just jump in and we'll tell you how to make it.
Coming up. All right, before we get into the ingredients, I want to tell you about the change we made from the previous video. Previously, we were using the food processor bowl to make it. Since then, I have primarily used the blender. The reason why I switched to this is because I like the big chunks of the nuts in the bread, but I actually prefer it to be a finer blend of the macadamia nuts, and I feel like the high-speed blender gives me that finer blend, and I don't have these big large chunks throughout. But you can still probably do that with this. You would just blend it a little less. So one more note before we get started on the ingredients. This is one of the ingredients we use. We always get our almond butter from Costco because it is one of the cheaper places we found it, and it measures out to exactly 3 loaves of bread. So we make 3 loaves of bread at a time, and then we throw 2 of them in the freezer because they freeze awesomely. When you pull it out of the freezer, just pull it out the night before, let it thaw in the fridge, and you're good to go for the next day. Here's your ingredient list. This is all that's going to be in there. You can add a little bit of salt if you buy unsalted nuts. We get all of this from Costco, literally all of it. Eggs, macadamia nuts, lemon juice, almond butter, and baking powder. So these are macadamia nuts we get from Costco. It's £1.50 pounds for
18 bucks?
$18. It's seriously the cheapest place we've been able to find it. Even the Costco brand that they will have from time to time, I think is like $1 or $2 more for the same size. This bag will give you at least 4 loaves of bread with a little bit left over to snack on. First thing we need to do is set the oven to 350. So the ingredients I'm doing here, of course, are for 3 loaves of bread, but we'll have the actual recipe listed down below for you. So I'm going to start out with 3 cups of macadamia nuts. It's okay if you have a little bit more. Let's make sure it's 3 full cups. Okay, we got our macadamia nuts in. Now we're gonna blitz the crap out of them. Usually I start out by pulsing them a couple of times. And I'll take it off and I'll kind of shake it up, redistribute, and then hit high. For about 5 seconds, as you can see. Then if you look at it, you can see that it is ground pretty fine. Since I'm making 3 loaves, and this will only fit 2 at a time in here, so I can't do all 3 at once, I'm going to pour my nuts in a bowl and weigh them out. So we have 438 grams. Alexa, what's 438 divided by 3?
438 divided by 3 is 146.
146. I need to dump back in 292 grams, which leaves me 146 grams. So we're gonna go ahead and do that now. It's about 2/3, obviously, of the mixture. Okay, what I do with the almond butter, since I can only make 2 loaves at a time, and it makes 3, is I will take the almond butter out of the jar and dump it into a large measuring cup. That way I can get it all mixed up, because I've tried mixing it in this jar before and it creates a huge mess. Huge. It's always super hard at the bottom. So here we have it in the jar.
It looks pretty empty to me.
And yep, I get just about every last little bit out of there that I can. No waste.
Not cheap.
Then we're gonna carefully stir this. It's a lot easier to stir in this than it is in the jar. But we're gonna kind of get that liquid part reincorporated, the oils and stuff, back into the almond butter. I try to chop those really hard pieces in half. So it might be a little hard to see, but as you can see, it comes out to 3 cups once you get it in there and all mixed up. Reincorporated, I should say. And it's pretty, there's still some large chunks in here, but that's okay because they'll get mixed up by the blender, but it's pretty well incorporated. You don't have the oil super separated from the butter anymore. So your next step is going to be to put in your eggs. Each loaf takes 5 eggs. So we're going to start out, you put in, per loaf, you put in 2. But since we're making 2 loaves in here, we're going to put in 4 to begin with.
Just so you guys know, this has absolutely 0 eggy taste. It's a lot of eggs, but it has 0 eggy taste.
There's a lot of nut in there, so you get the nut flavor more than the egg. All right, we got our 4 eggs. We're going to put it on high for just a few seconds until so all these eggs can get incorporated. Now we've got those eggs incorporated. Next up, we're going to put in 3 more eggs per loaf to give you the total of 5 per loaf. Again, since I'm making 2 loaves, I'm putting in 6 eggs. So if you can find eggs, if you have a membership to a warehouse store like Costco or Sam's, definitely recommend getting your eggs there because you're going to get them a lot cheaper than any place else. Costco has been the cheapest place that we've been able to get them per egg, especially because they had them on sale for $5. For how many in a package?
3 dozen.
$5 for 3 dozen. So we bought 2. Now all the extra eggs in here, we're going to mix it up again on high really quick. I recommend a really long handled spatula if you're using the blender, because in between the steps I like to try and push this down, and also the mixture likes to get stuck up in the corners, so I try to break that free as well. After the eggs are all incorporated, then we're going to add in 2 cups of the almond butter. And that's 1 cup per loaf. If you're doing it the same method I do, I dump in what looks like it's about 2/3 of it, and then I scrape down the sides of the bowl and then try to look and see where it measures out. And I still got 1/3 of a cup I can put in. Then we're going to pop the top back on, and we're going to turn it on. We're going to turn it on low until it's all incorporated. It was already on. I like to let that go for a good 20 seconds or so. So now that everything's all mixed up, if you are using unsalted nuts, this is the point where you would want to put in your sea salt. It is half a teaspoon of sea salt per loaf. What we are putting in though is our lemon juice and our baking powder. I kind of like to alternate these, and I like to do it while it is going. So I'm going to put this back on. I've got my little handy dandy lid here, and it is 2 tablespoons of lemon juice per loaf, which means I'm going to put in 4. Then you're also going to put in a rounded teaspoon of baking powder. And like I said, I like to alternate these, so I'll do 1 tablespoon of this, I'll do a rounded teaspoon of the powder, and then I'll do another tablespoon of this, and I pour it all into this bowl. But I usually have it going on low. So it's mostly mixed up, but I'm going to scrape this down a little bit. Just because a lot of the lemon juice and the baking powder like to stay at the top. And then I'm going to turn it back on medium for a little bit. So there we have it. So if you're like me and you're lazy and you don't want to clean up the pans, I line them with parchment paper. Sometimes I get a little more than I need. And I just push it down the best I can. I know there's a way to wet it and have it stick, but for whatever reason I haven't been successful with that. So I usually just put something in it to weigh it down. That way it stays in there. Don't pour it out with your center blade thing still in there. It creates a mess. I will, again, try and get every last bit scraped off of this before I set it aside and I can do my next loaf. So I have this pretty much cleaned off. I'm going to set it over here on a paper towel. Because it is the blender and it's a very thick batter, it doesn't always get super mixed. So I just go in here and kind of mix it a little bit more with the spatula, just to get the top stuff incorporated with the bottom stuff. Now we're ready to pour into the pans. And I'm going to do about half into this one, and then I'll do about half in the other one, and then I'll just keep adding to each of them until they look about even.
Very scientific here.
Well, I mean, it's for me, so I'm not real concerned if one is smaller than another one.
Right. Big thing is just basically taking half of it and put it in one pan and half of it put it in the other pan.
Yeah. I don't know what the exact measurements are. I've never measured it.
So just a couple quick notes on this, guys. We've made this with nuts other than macadamia nuts. They're not always the easiest to find, and obviously they're very expensive. So we've made it with walnuts, which it came out pretty well, but it's a little drier. So walnut does have a little bit less carbs, but what it does have is quite a bit less fat too. So not as amazing for keto as what macadamia nuts are, but you know, it's a little cheaper. So you can definitely do that. In addition, almond butter is also replaced with coconut butter. So if you like coconut butter better, or it's, you know, it is a little cheaper generally if you make your own, but that is another option that you can do substitution wise. One of our commenters on our first video mentioned she used sunflower butter, which we thought might be pretty good, but it sounds like it turned it out kind of green and it didn't taste very good. So I'm not sure if it's the components that she used, or the combination of substituting macadamia nuts instead of, or using macadamia nuts or not using macadamia nuts, but she just made mention that sunflower butter kind of came out pretty nasty. So
turned it green.
Turned it green. So nasty and green, not a good combination. So just a few things I thought we'd share with you from our experience. We've been making this a lot. Stacy eats it all the time, and it's pretty much been her staple lunch. And I really enjoy it too because I was a huge bread person before keto, and this fits the bill.
And as you can see, every last little bit.
She'll be here for 20 minutes right around on that.
Now we're going to throw everything in for our third batch, or for our third loaf. And since we already have our nuts done, that's a step we can skip. Okay, so because of the nature of the almond butter in this mixture, I'm going to say get it cleaned off of your utensils and everything as quickly as you can. If you have a dishwasher, throw it in the dishwasher. Make sure you rinse it really well first, because this stuff will stick, and if it dries, it's really, really hard to get off. I'm gonna put these, all 3 of these in the oven. If you're just making 1 loaf at a time, you can do 350 for 35 minutes. But since I'm doing all 3 at once, I'm gonna put them in for 40 minutes and then I'm gonna check them from there. Our timer has gone off. Let's go ahead and pull these out and test them. They're baked up nice and large. That one looks like that is good. So obviously you're gonna put the toothpick in the center. Make sure it comes out clean. Once I get them out of the stove, I pull them out by the parchment paper and transfer them directly to the rack.
All right, so we have our 3 loaves, and Stacy's gonna go ahead and cut one up. These 2 are gonna end up in the freezer.
And the thickness that I cut per slice is about that.
About a quarter of an inch?
Say? Yeah. You could probably do a little bit thicker, but it's going to throw your macros off.
Yeah. And you don't really need it, to be quite honest, because it's so dense and so filling. So.
But it's really good. Like,
yep.
I like to use the end pieces as a snack.
Yes, she does. If you guys saw any of our vlogs when we did some traveling stuff, we were making sandwiches out of this stuff too. Mm-hmm. This kind of was our chaffle before the chaffles.
That's true.
Like, they used it for everything. And it's really good.
It's savory.
Yeah, very much.
Very much savory. It doesn't taste like bread.
No.
Like white bread.
Yeah, it doesn't taste like white bread.
It's not your white bread, but if you were more into like the grain breads or the wheat or anything, it's got kind of that flavor, but it's like a nuttier flavor.
Mm-hmm. Obviously.
But I like it.
We really like it. We eat it for sandwiches all the time. Whenever I go into the office, I'm usually packing a sandwich with me. Let us know if you try it. Let us know if you like it. And if you have any other recipes for stuff like this, let us know. We always are interested in other recipes, but 9 months, still a winner, guys. Mm-hmm. Give it a try. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Until next time.
Stay keto.
See you guys. Hey guys. Craig and Stacy here with Kzoo Keto. So we are, Stacy amazed at herself just right there. Which is unfortunate because this will probably just turn this into a blooper. But that's okay. Hey guys, Greg and Stacy here with Kzoo Keto. So today we're bringing you Macadamia Nut Bread. Did I say that right? Macadamia Nut Bread. Interesting. Another blooper. Fantastic.
I have nuts in my teeth.
And you can use whatever you want.
Ah, it's already broken.